What's up, everybody? If you've been watching this channel for a while, you know I'm a big fan of the Neumann TLM103 microphone. I've been using it for a long time to record my voice, among many other things. It's got great top-end representation, so it smooths out all your high-end, makes it sound nice and clear and crisp without sounding harsh. It also has a really nice mid and low-mid representation to get the human voice really nicely represented in recordings. Plus, if you get up nice and close to the microphone, you get a nice bass presence boost with a proximity effect. It just gives you that nice kind of podcast radio announcer voice representation without having to process the audio too much. Now, one of the big issues I've had with this mic is that it picks up a lot of the room around it too. So if you're in an untreated space or you've got a lot of stuff going on around the mic as well as your voice in front of it, it's not really going to reject a lot of that. You'll pick up a lot of it in your recordings, and there's not a lot you can do about it. So that's been kind of an issue I've been wanting to solve, and I think I finally found the microphone that actually does solve those problems. This is Lauten Audio LS208. Same kind of deal with the Neumann. It's a large capsule condenser microphone that's built around picking up the human voice really well. Now, Lauten really built this mic around podcasting and around vocals in uncontrolled spaces. So if you're in a live room recording a band and you need a vocalist to come in crystal clear, maybe you want a microphone that's going to be able to do that with the rest of the band in the room. Or if you're in a podcast environment or maybe a radio environment where you don't have the best space, you've got a little bit of noise around the room or around the outside of the room, you don't want to pick it up, something that'll solve those issues. A lot of people use the Shure SM7B in those environments. That's a dynamic microphone, and I love that mic. I think it sounds great on vocals. But being a dynamic, it's a little bit darker sounding, it's a little bit less present in the high frequencies to the point that it sounds a little dull, and you can't do much to bring those frequencies back without also bringing some harshness into it. So when it comes to microphones naturally picking up smooth character, it becomes really, really important with the human voice. Large capsule condensers are known to have that kind of presence where they just sound really nice and full and clear and crisp across the entire spectrum. But they can easily sound harsh, they can easily sound a little bit too intense in the top end. They're really sensitive to their environments usually. So again, a lot of different compromises have to be made when selecting a microphone for your voice, for your room, for your space, for everything that's going to go into the recording process. Now, like I said, the most important thing here is how does the microphone actually sound? This is the Lauten all by itself, no processing, nothing special going on. I'm just running this through a MixPre 10.2 from Sound Devices, and that's it. There's no EQ, there's no compression, there's no crazy limiting or anything like that. This is just the mic all by itself. Now, compare that to the Neumann TLM103. To my ears, I'm hearing a little bit more room presence in the TLM103. It sounds a little bit sharper in the top end, not in a bad way, just in a slightly different way. But a lot of the things that I like about the Neumann, switching over to the Lauten, they're kind of all still there. I like the presence of the mid-range. I like how the low end sounds. I like how the top end sounds. This is just a little bit different in its flavor in the top end, but you don't get as much of the room sound. You don't get as much of the stuff going on around, like the hard drives I've got spinning or, any of the reflections off of walls or anything like that. Also, when it comes to actually running these microphones into preamps and bringing them up to normal listening levels, the Lauten's a lot quieter than the Neumann. So in order to use this mic, I want to make sure that my preamps are going to be a lot more clear and clean and crisp than maybe some of the standard entry-level or budget preamps that are out there. You can still get away with it. You can sound great with really most setups these days, but when it comes to really dialing something in specifically for you that's going to be reliable every single time you work with it, I think it's really important to have a great sounding mic that's tailored to your voice and your purposes, and a preamp that mic is going into that's going to be able to give you a lot of gain and boost that signal up without adding any distortion or noise from electronics. The Lauten also has built-in high-pass and low-pass filters, which is fantastic if you want to roll off any signal at the mic. Having an integrated high-pass and low-pass filter can really help you in situations where, again, either you're in a suboptimal space, maybe you've got some wind noise, maybe you've got a really deep bassy voice that you need to compensate for, or if you have a lot of harsh sibilance, you can actually get rid of that at the mic rather than in the recorder or in post-production. Everybody's voice is going to sound just a little bit different different with these. This is the high-pass filter set at 50 Hertz on the Lauten, and as you can tell, my voice has just that little touch of the low end rolled off. There's not quite as much low-end noise or any kind of rumble from the room, and it's just a really nice organic sound. But because there aren't too many useful frequencies down there, I'm not changing the character of my sound too much. It's really just kind of a problem solver more than anything else. Switching up to 120 Hertz roll-off, you can tell this kind of starts getting rid of some of the lower frequencies of my voice, and that can be good or bad depending on what you're going for. If you're working with a higher pitched voice, generally you can safely roll off to 120 Hertz and it's not really going to hurt you in any way. But again, if you have a deeper voice or you want to capture that low end resonance, especially if you've got something like the proximity effect going where you've got somebody right on top of a mic, maybe you want to keep those frequencies, maybe you don't. It's sort of up to you. Again, having this at the mic is really, really helpful because you don't have to rely on something in post. You can make decisions as you're recording. The low pass filter works exactly the same, just at the top end of the frequency spectrum. This is the 10 kilohertz roll off, which again is only going to get rid of those top end frequencies that are really airy and bright. It's not going to touch too many of the frequencies that are actually part of the human voice. This is great for really harsh and sibilant sounds. You can control that right at the microphone rather than in post or at a recorder. The other setting for the low pass filter is 8 kilohertz, and you can tell this is a little bit darker. This is kind of a more traditional sound to what you'd expect out of a dynamic microphone like the SM7B or maybe an SM58, and it does a really good job of controlling a lot of harshness. It might be too dark for your voice, so you don't necessarily want to use this, but again, as an inline problem solver, it's great to have these options right at the microphone on analog circuitry so that you can make these decisions before you even hit the preamps of your recorder, and maybe you'll save yourself some headroom and be able to turn things up that much more if you're not recording harsh and really intense frequencies at the top or bottom of the frequency spectrum to begin with. Now, like I said, the proximity effect is also pretty important if you want to get that nice radio-ready kind of big present voiceover style recording. And again, that's just moving closer to your microphone a little bit. If you're using a cardioid mic, you'll naturally get that low-end presence boost just by having a little bit closer to your face. So I'm maybe about an inch off the capsule right now on the 208, and it sounds pretty good all the way around. Again, you're going to get some of the same characteristics of the Neumann where you have the nice mid-range, the low-end presence boost, and different top end. It's not the same, it's not bad, it's not better necessarily to my ears, it's just a little bit different. I personally prefer it, I think. And again, with all the rest of the room noise kind of dulled down a little bit, so it's more just my voice, I think this microphone is fantastic for that purpose. Switching over to the Neumann, again, you'll get the same kind of result where you have, again, just a little bit of space in between your mouth and the mic. That's about an inch away from the capsule. You get that nice, full, low, warm kind of recording. But in those moments of silence, whether it's a dramatic pause in an audiobook or maybe just some dead air when you're actually doing a podcast or a radio show, the Neumann does pick up a lot of that noise, like I said, just in the background of stuff. So that's a little bit of a trade-off here. The other big thing to consider with these mics is price, of course. Now, the Neumann is a $1,300 microphone, brand new. You can find them used. They're great. There's really generally nothing wrong with them buying used because they're pretty durable microphones, and people who spend that kind of money on mics tend to take care of them for the most part. The Lauten, brand new, is about $600. That's less than half the price of the Neumann for comparable quality all the way around to my ears, and something that's going to perform a little bit better in an untreated environment. And especially if you already have a microphone like the Shure SM7B or the Electro Voice RE20 or any of the Rode versions of mics like that, where they're kind of designed around the whole voiceover concept. If you're looking for a mic to step up into a little bit higher quality recordings right out of the box without having to jump the $1,000 plus mark, I think the LS208 is the ticket into that kind of sound. I really like this mic. I'm going to be switching over to it personally for the rest of my recordings until I can find something that even comes close to it for the price. And I really think that's going to be a long time. Lauten nailed it, in my opinion, with this microphone. So I'm really excited to be switching over to it. I think anybody who's in the market for a new mic in this realm would love this thing too. I'll give you one more back and forth between these two mics here. Again, this is the Lauten Audio LS208. I like it because it has a lot of the same characteristics as the Neumann TLM103 here, without some of the harsher top end to a degree. It's just a little bit of a different top end reception, and it doesn't pick up as much room noise as the Neumann does in my space. So I think that's a really great thing for anybody who's looking to get this kind of quality at half the price in a space that maybe isn't the most ideal, pristine studio environment. The Neumann over here, again, sounds really great. I love this microphone. But with those couple of downsides and the $1,300 price tag, I'd really love to be able to move to a microphone that's a little bit easier on the wallet and doesn't require as much kind of consciousness when it comes to setting up in a space. The proximity effect does sound great. I really like it here. But it also sounds great over here, and I really don't think there's too big of a trade-off on either ends of these microphones. Oh, and one more thing, the mounting systems on these. The Neumanns are kind of notorious for these spider web sort of mount systems, and I really don't like these as much. I've constantly had to replace strings on them. They're a little bit weird to get set up, and they're not fragile, but there's a higher chance that you're going to kind of mess it up as you're setting things up. And once you've got a cable hanging off of it, generally the Neumann kind of tilts in weird ways, and I know that doesn't affect the sound, but aesthetically it's just kind of obnoxious to me. The Lauten actually has a really, really solid setup, and I really like the way that it's sort of tailored around, again, kind of what the Shure SM7B's mount is, where it's a little bit more radio friendly and has that kind of robust structure, and it's not easy to kind of disassemble by accident. Also, having a cable come off the back of a microphone rather than underneath it just kind of helps things sit a little bit better. It doesn't put that much stress on the cables or the microphone mount points or anything like that. It's just, again, a little bit more aesthetically and ergonomically easy to deal with. It also has to be easy to use. If you're setting something up and it takes you 20 minutes to do it and then it breaks every 5 seconds and it's just annoying, you have to replace parts over and over again, it doesn't matter how great it sounds to me. That's going to be a waste of time. I'm going to reach for something else. So obviously that's a bit of an exaggeration here, but again, I don't think you can discount how simple and how easy it is to manage a microphone setup like this, and how frustrating it can be once you start kind of getting up there in the years with these Neumann mounts. They do tend to fall apart, and while the metal components of it are really good, the strings are very, very obnoxious, and I'd much prefer to deal with something like this. So on that note, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you want to know more about Lauten Audio or pick up an LS208 for yourself, go check out the links in the description below. Don't forget to hit like, comment below with any questions you might have, or tell me what you think about both of these microphones here, if you like the Lauten better or if you like the Neumann a little bit better. This is really subjective, and everybody's preferences can kind of be different, so what I personally like may not be what you personally like. Anyway, let me know in the comments, and as always, thanks for watching.